Hey everyone, Token Dave over here, a dorky talking black guy who's just trying to get by. And welcome to another edition of the Token Topics. Here, I basically talk about one particular subject matter for a certain period of time. Keep in mind that basically everything that I state in these token topics are my personal biased opinion. Okay? They are not rooted in concrete facts, alright? These are just things that basically I come to a conclusion of based on what I've experienced, read, seen, and heard of. And I am finally back in my building, everyone. So yeah, I'm literally about to go back home and I'm probably going to go to sleep pretty soon because I got work in the morning and my headphones just fell. And it's like after midnight, so it is now February 26th. But anyway, so one thing I noticed with the comic book boom is that a lot of people have a weird interpretation of how well, not weird, but ironic interpretation of how they view DC and Marvel right now. What I mean is, people view Marvel as vibrant, lighthearted, and colorful, where they view DC as dark, gritty, and depressing. And it's very ironic because that was not the case in comics, actually. Hold on. I'm home. Oh, hey everyone. It's Mama Hawkins. Mama Hawkins. Yeah.
Hi y'all. How are y'all?
Oh boy. Mama Hawkins is actually watching Hidden Figures, which is pretty cool. Anyway, so oh god. Quiet Mellow. Quiet Mellow. Yeah, that's Mellow the Menace. Do you guys remember Mellow the Menace? Oh Lord. I gotta clean this place, cause like this place is a wreck. No, it's not Mellow the Menace. I didn't clean my room for a week. I'm not gonna show you guys because that's embarrassing, you know, but yeah. It was a bit of a wreck right now. Doing this holding on to one side of the camera, or one side of the phone, it's fairly interesting. Anyway, what was I getting to? Oh yeah. So, it's fairly ironic that a lot of people have this view of Marvel being bright, joyful, and bright, lighthearted and everything, and DC dark and serious, because it really wasn't the case, especially during the dark age of comics. Well, what I like to call the dark age. Oh boy, now that I'm thinking about it, I should do a should talk about this more in comic book concepts, but Mellow. Okay, you guys want to see Mellow? You guys want to see Mellow? Hey, say hello, Mellow. Say hello. Nope. Looks like Mellow doesn't want to say hi. Looks like Mellow, watch your foot. Watch your foot, Mellow. Watch your foot. Sorry. Bit of distractions, guys. Anyway, so basically, back in the dark ages of comics, right? Which I call the dark age of comics. It's not the official term. Like, the official term is the Bronze Age, but I still call it the dark age. Anyway, the dark age of comics started actually because of Marvel. Because basically, in the dark age of comics, we had the death of Gwen Stacy. You know, that changed everything in comics. Changed everything. Because for a while, comics were lighthearted and, you know, fun and adventurous. And there was also quite a few things that were pure BS and everything. But the thing was, though, like, where Gwen Stacy died, things got really dark in comics overall, particularly in Marvel. You see, first you had the death of Gwen Stacy. Then you also ended up having basically, the infamous, basically Hank Pym beating on Wasp. Yes, the original Ant-Man hitting his wife. You touched on that. You also got basically, the death of a superhero. The first major death of a superhero, not a sidekick. First death of a sidekick was actually Bucky, which I'll talk about sometime in the future. But yeah, you got the first death of a major superhero with the original Captain Marvel from Marvel Comics, actually, aka Marvel, and you also have basically, certain comic book characters fighting off racism and talking about racism more so than Black Panther and a story or two from the Avengers, which I covered previously. But, Marvel was doing a lot of this back in the day, where DC did touch on some things. The biggest thing DC touched on at that time in the 70s was basically, Speedy becoming a heroin addict, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more when I talk about something, the different eras of comics, But the thing is, though, Marvel was known to have a lot more darker stories between the 70s and the 80s. And the Daredevil run that you guys are all aware of, that we've seen in both the movie and are seeing on Netflix, that was all done in the 70s. And basically, oh my god, I can't believe I forgot his name. That was all thanks to Frank Miller, by the way. So you have Frank Miller to thank for that. But you also have Frank Miller for basically Batman the way you know him now, the darker Batman, the darker superhero. Because he wasn't always like that. You saw that change happen in the 80s, which, by the way, is the important part of DC becoming grittier and darker. Because you had Frank Miller come out with The Dark Knight Returns, And then you also had Watchmen, which was also done by Frank Miller. And then you had the death of Jason Todd. Those were DC going into darker territory, and those were drastic changes. But then again, the other reason why I went to darker territory is because of basically, DC doing the reboot of their comic line, which I'll go further into detail later on. But suffice it to say, basically, it's very interesting that people basically identify Marvel as a lighter comic book company and comic book characters, where they've actually been more darker and more complex in the comics as opposed to the DC characters, whom themselves in the comics were lighter and very simplified. And come to think of it, one of the reasons why a lot of Marvel movies tend to translate better in movies now is because the writers understood the complexity of the characters from Marvel, and they translated that into Marvel, and that's why most of the characters are better developed. Well, actually, most of the heroes are better developed. The villains, not so much, but in the past year, Marvel's been doing a lot better with the villains, Whereas opposed to DC, basically the characters are very one-note and not as complex, with the exception of Batman. But if you kind of pay attention, they have a harder time adapting a lot of their heroes. Superman, everyone's known. Batman became popular in the 80s, But, you got, basically, they couldn't adopt the Flash properly in Justice League. They kind of got it with Aquaman, but we have to fully see later on. And Cyborg, they dropped the ball on Cyborg. And Wonder Woman, they actually pretty much got correctly and everything. But yeah, the darker tone though is more prevalent in DC in the movies, but writing their characters were very kind of two-dimensional, and their characters are two-dimensional in comics up until recently. So it's very weird how now the paradigm has switched, but that's just my take on this issue. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? Do you guys have any your other thoughts, on this irony of how Marvel and DC comics are viewed now? Please drop me a comment below. Give me a like. Follow me on Facebook at Token Dave, and at Twitter at TokenDave80. Subscribe and ring that bell so you know when a new video loads. And I can finally get some sleep, man, because I'm tired. But anyway, this has been Token Dave, dorky token black guy who's just trying to get by. I'll catch all of you later.